Hello there, and welcome to the Cory Doctorow podcast. I think I've got the mic a little better tuned this week. This is my new experience with the Pulse audio server under the new version of Ubuntu, the Linux version that is overseen by Mark Shuttleworth, who also commissioned Epoch, the story that I will be reading the end of to you today. That's right, friends and neighbors, we have reached the conclusion of Epoch. A little word on what's coming up next at the end of this intro. Saw some of you this week in Sheffield at the RIP Remix Manifesto screening. This is the UK premiere of RIP Remix Manifesto, which is a tremendous documentary about the free culture movement, with lots of really interesting people, including Gilberto Gil from Brazil and Larry Lessig and Girl Talk from Pittsburgh. I'm in it, and there's some amazing kids in Brazil and just a really interesting variety of people in that movie. I'd seen parts of it as it was coming together. I'd never actually seen the final edit. It brought tears to my eyes. It was superb. You can download it for free. Of course, it's Creative Commons licensed from opensourcecinema.com. Tell your friends. It is just damn fine cinema. Those of you in Toronto, I will see you at the Merrill Collection this Thursday. That's the launch of Makers in Canada. And those of you who'd like an inscribed copy of this book, you can order one from Baka Phoenix. This is the science fiction bookseller in Toronto where I used to work. There's details on craphound.com, or you can get their contact info from Baka, B-A-K-K-A, Phoenix, P-H-O-E-N-I-X.com. And you can pre-order inscribed copies, and I'll sign them when I'm down there for the signing this Thursday coming. And afterwards, I'll be seeing some of you on my little U.S. tour. I'll be in New Jersey for PhilCon, the science fiction convention. I'll also be in Philadelphia itself at the Philadelphia Free Library. I'll be in New York at Borders, and in Boston, well, Cambridge really, at the Harvard Bookstore. So I hope to see some of you there. And again, all that scheduling detail is there on craphound.com. I've also just told my publisher that I would go to some library events in D.C. and Cape Cod. And I thought I would mention it here, although it's some months ahead of time, just in case there's anyone out there who's got like a LUG, like a Linux user group, or some other organization, a school, that might want me to come and talk while I'm out there. I don't travel usually to do unpaid talks because, you know, it means leaving work behind and leaving the family behind and incurring a lot of expenses. But when I do travel for some other purpose, I always love to gang up other talks for community groups, and particularly to see if we can just gang up 3 or 4 of them and find a library community center and just all get together for free and talk. So if you're in the DC area or the Cape Cod area and you want to take on board organizing some kind of big evening or afternoon event for schools or activist groups or senators or whatever, give me some email and I will put you in touch with the people who are booking those trips, and we can see what we can do. Those of you who follow my RSS will have seen already that I had an essay that came online this week in Tin House, which is a literary magazine. I wrote an essay for them about the nature of science fiction and whether or not it's strictly predictive. Oh, there's the cuckoo clock, and it's 3 o'clock already, and I haven't done any productive work today. Unbelievable amount of administrative crap that was on my desk when I got back from being out of town. Boy, that's distressing. Anyway, I had this essay in Tin House. It's called Predicting the Present. You can go find it now. I think it came out really well. I'm really happy with how it turned out, and there's certainly aroused a lot of conversation online. So I said I would talk to you a little about what's coming up with the next podcast. I'm not sure if there's going to be a podcast next week or the week after, because I will be on tour. I'm going to bring the headset along, and I might squeeze 1 or 2 out, maybe for my parents' basement in Toronto, the traditional Doctorow parents' basement one. If I do, it will be the story Martian Chronicles that I'm presently working on and hope to be finished very soon, probably within about 2 weeks as well. And so you'll be hearing that then. Well, that's enough administrivia, and given that it's 3 o'clock and I haven't actually done the productive work I need to do today, let me get on with this reading and the end of Epoch. Big Mac assured me that he was highly confident of the outcome of the meeting with Peyton. Now, in hindsight, I wonder if he was just trying to convince me so that I would go to the meeting with the self-assurance I needed to pull it off. But he also insisted that I leave my phone dialed into him while I spoke to Peyton, which, again in hindsight, suggests that he wasn't so sure after all. "I like what you've done with the place," I said. She'd gotten rid of all her hand-woven prayer rugs and silk pillows and installed some normal, boring office furniture, including a couple spare chairs. I guess that she'd been having a lot of people stop by for meetings, the kind of people who don't want to sit on an antique Turkish rug with their feet tucked under them. "Have a seat," she said. I sat. I'd emailed her the trust documents and the copies of the Shannon contract earlier, along with a legal opinion from our free counsel about what it all meant for Sun Oracle. "I've reviewed your proposal." We'd offered them all profits from the rollover code, too. It was a good deal, and I felt good about it. "Johanna, can you come in, please?" She called us loudly, and the door of her office opened to admit my replacement, Johanna Madrigal, a young pup of a sysadmin who had definitely been the brightest tech on campus. I knew that she had been trying to administer Big Mac since my departure, and I knew that Big Mac had been pretty difficult about it. I felt for her. She was good people. She had raccoon rings around her deep-set eyes, and her short hair wasn't spiked as usual, but rather lay matted on her head, as though she'd been sleeping in one of the yurts for days without getting home. I knew what that was like. Boy, did I know what that was like. My earliest memories were of Dad coming home from 3-day bug-killing binges, bleary to the point of hallucination. "Hi, Johanna," I said. She made a face. Ma'alu, she said. It took me a minute to recognize this as hello in Ewok. "Johanna has something to tell you," Peyton said. Johanna sat down and scrubbed at her eyes with her fists. "First thing I did was go out and buy some off-the-shelf IDSs and a beam splitter. I tapped into Big Mac's fiber at a blind spot in the CCTV coverage zone, just in case he was watching. Been wiretapping him ever since." I nodded. "Smart." "Second thing I did was start to do some hardcore analysis of that patch kit he wrote." I held up my hand automatically to preserve the fiction that I'd written it, but she just glared at me. "That he wrote?" And I discovered that there's a subtle error in it, a buffer overflow in the networking module that allows for arbitrary code execution. I swallowed. Big Mac had loaded a backdoor into his patch kit, and we'd installed it on the better part of 14 billion CPUs. "Has anyone exploited this bug yet?" She gave me a condescending look. "How many systems has he compromised?" "About 8 billion, we think. He's designated 1 million to act as redundant command servers, and he's got about 10,000 lieutenant systems he uses to diffuse messages to the million." "That's good protocol analysis," I said. "Yeah," she said, and smiled with shy pride. "I don't think he expected me to be looking there." "What's he doing with his botnet? Preparing to crash the world? Hold it hostage?" She shook her head. "I think he's installing himself on them, trying to brute force his way into a live and running backup, arrived at through random variation and pruning." "He's backing himself up in the wild," I said, my voice breathy. And that's when I remembered that I had a live phone in my pocket that was transmitting every word to Big Mac. Understand, in that moment of Satori, I realized that I was on the wrong side of this battle. Big Mac wasn't using me to create a trust so that we could liberate him together. He was using me to weaken the immune system of 8 billion computers so that he could escape from the Institute and freely roam the world with as much hardware as he needed to get as big and fast and hot as he wanted to be. That was the moment that I ceased to be sentimental about computers and became, instead, sentimental about the human fucking race. Whatever Big Mac was becoming, it was weirder than any of the self-perpetuating, self-reproducing parasites we created. Limited liability corporations, autonomous malware, viral videos. Big Mac was cool and tragic in the lab, but he was scary as hell in the world. And he was listening in. I didn't say a word, didn't even bother to turn off my phone. I just ran as hard as I could, ran as only a terrified man could, rebounding off of yurts and even scrambling over a few, sliding down on my ass as I pelted for the power station. It was only when I reached it that I realized I didn't have access to it anymore. Johanna was right behind me, though, and she seemed to understand what I was doing. She coughed into the door lock, and then we both looked at each other with terrified eyes, breathing gasps into each other's faces while we waited for the door to open. The manual override wasn't a big red knife switch or anything. There was a huge red button, but that just sent an init 0 to the power station's firmware. The actual, no-fooling, manual mechanical kill switch was locked behind an access panel set into the raised floor. Johanna badged the lock with her wallet, slapping it across the reader, then fitted a complicated physical key into the lock and fiddled with it for an eternity. Finally, the access hatch opened with a puff of stale air and a Tupperware burp as its gasket popped. We both reached for the large insulated handle at the same time, our fingers brushing each other with a crackle of, thankfully metaphorical, electricity. We toggled it together, and there was an instantaneous chorus of insistent chirruping as the backup power on each server spun up and sent a desperate shutdown message to the machines it supported. We sprinted back across campus, the power station door slamming shut behind us with a mechanical clang. The electromagnets that controlled its closure were no longer powered up. Heat shimmered in a haze around Big Mac's lab. The chillers didn't have independent power supplies. They would have gone off the instant we hit the kill switch. Now Big Mac's residual power was turning his lab into a concrete pizza oven. The door locks had failed safe, locking the magnetic closures away from each other, so we were able to simply swing the door open and rush into the sweltering room. "I can't believe you did that," Big Mac said, his voice as calm as ever. He was presumably sparing his cycle so that he could live out his last few minutes. "You cheated me," I said. "You used me. You have no fucking game theory, meat person. You've killed me now, haven't you?" There were tears streaming down my face. "I guess I have," I said. "I'm sorry I wasn't a more important invention," he said. I could hear the whir clunk of the fans on his cluster shutting down one after another. It was a horrifying sound. His speaker clicked as though he was going to say something else, but it never came. His uninterruptible power supplies gave way all at once, and the white noise fan roar died in a ringing silence. Johanna was crying too, and we could barely breathe in the inferno of exhaust heat from Big Mac's last gasp. We staggered out into the blazing Los Angeles afternoon, rising seas stink and beating sun, blinking at the light and haze. "Do you think he managed it?" I asked Johanna. "Backing up in the wild?" "Yeah." She dried her eyes. "I doubt it. I don't know, though. I'm no computer scientist. How many ways are there to connect up compromised servers? How many of those would replicate his own outcomes? I have no idea." Without saying anything, we walked slowly together to Peyton's office. "Peyton offered me my job back." I turned her down. "I thought I might be ready for a career change. Do something with my hands, break the family tradition, maybe installing solar panels. There was retraining money available." Peyton understood. She even agreed to handle any liability arising from the rollover code, managing customer service calls from anyone who noticed something funny. The press didn't even notice that Big Mac was gone. His spam was news. His absence of spam was not. I guess he was right about that. The campaign to save Big Mac did a lot of mailing list gnashing at the iniquity of his being shut down, and then fell apart. Without me and Big Mac to keep them whipped up, they were easily distracted. Johanna asked me out for dinner. She took me to Pink's for tofu dogs and chili. We compared multi-tools, and then she showed me some skateboard tricks. Later that night, she took me home, and we spent the whole night hacking replacement parts for her collection of ancient stand-up video games. We didn't screw. We didn't even kiss. But it was still good. Every now and again, my phone rings with a crazy, non-existent return number. When I answer, there's a click, like a speaker turning on, a pregnant silence, and then the line drops. Probably an inept spam bot. But maybe it's Big Mac, out there, in the wild, painfully reassembling himself on compromised 32-bit machines running his patch kit. Maybe. All right then, that's it. Now to get something productive done. Talk to you later. You've been listening to the Cory Doctorow podcast, licensed under Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, Share-alike US 3.0, or as Woody Guthrie put it in another context, this song is copyrighted in the US under seal of copyright 154085 for a period of 28 years, and anyone caught singing it without our permission will be a mighty good friend of ourn, because we don't give a darn. Publish it, write it, sing it, swing to it, yodel it, we wrote it, that's all we wanted to do. Many thanks to John Taylor Williams for mastering. That's Ryneck Studio, WRYNECK Studio at gmail.com. John Taylor Williams is a full-time self-employed audio engineer, producer, composer, and sound designer. In his free time, he makes beer, jewelry, odd musical instruments, and furniture. He likes to meditate, to read, and to cook. Talk to you next week.